right, and hello and welcome to Agatha Christie They Watched. I'm Bill Peschel.
And I'm Teresa Peschel, and
And
I'm looking at this screen, and I
what are
guess
you looking at
everybody's
now?
working at.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this for a year. It's going to take me a year to feel fully confident
And your
that
manager and
everything works.
producer. I thank you. Well, I can't say thank you for that. I can't be snarky about it because she knows me too well.
I am the talent.
You're
I
the
am not
talent.
the IT. You are the IT. I
Yep.
depend on you to make me look good.
Yeah, well, you see, it's excellent and 0 views, so we're right where we started. And thank you so much for watching, friends.
Yes, I know some people will watch this later, and we appreciate that. We very much appreciate anybody who watches at any time over the next 25 years.
Well,
as long as the internet is in business, we'll have this up on our YouTube channel.
Well, but this time we have moved on. We are now doing puzzle. Not Puzzle at, this is Puzzle at End House, but that's the Russian title for the film that we're watching, which is based off the Agatha Christie novels Peril at End House.
Yes, Peril at End House. She published this in 1931, and by this time in Agatha's life, she had she was almost completely recovered, at least on the surface, from the 9-day from her 11-day disappearance, and Archie dumping her for his secretary, and having to rebuild her life. So she's and she met Max Mallowan, and she might even be married to Max by this time, second chance at love.
Yeah.
But it shows in her writing. She really was able to get back into the groove and really enjoy writing novels again.
Mm-hmm.
So after this, you have in the 30s, you have this explosion of wonderful novels.
30s and 40s, her big part of her career. This is the ones that made her reputation.
Over and above what she did with the others. But here we are, yes, with Peril at End House. And there's that great Fontana cover. Look at that. Poirot comes out of retirement. He's always coming out of retirement. And he's always finding delicious brunettes sprawled on the ground wearing low-cut dresses and bright red stoles to indicate blood, because at that time you couldn't put blood all over the cover of a book.
Mm-hmm. And then there's the Tom Adams cover on the right. That kind of looks like one of his early ones because it didn't have quite the high number of surrealistic elements in there, but it's still a fascinating cover. And I love the way he drops out the color up here at the top.
Is that supposed to be the albatross in the background?
Yeah, the plane. Well, it's the plane up above. He's in the plane itself, and that's the wing up top. I guess it's a biplane.
Well, it would be something like that at that time in 1930, because she would have written this. She published it in 1931, but she actually would have been writing it, because of the way publishing worked, she would have been writing it in 1930 to the very beginning of 1931, because publishing houses took a year or more to get you in print.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at that Tom Adams cover, and I can see our hero Michael Seton, and that's an interesting choice for the cover, because Michael Seton is an important character in the novel, and this is what Agatha does really, really well. Michael Seton is a really important character in the novel. He drives the plot, but he never comes on stage, and he's dead. He dies tragically. He never says a single word, and yet his relationship
aviator.
His relationship to the other characters is what drives the plot, and that's, I thought, really interesting. And you're saying something.
He was an aviator who was he going around the world on this, or was he just doing a long distance flight?
In the novel, he was going around the world, and I think he crash landed in the Pacific, like Amelia Earhart. And you either go down in the ocean and you turn into shark kibble, or you land on some tropical island, and if you're not eaten by cannibals, you die of starvation, and nobody ever finds you. Oh, and go back to that picture.
Okay, let's see here.
Yes, the crash of the albatross. And when you look at the subtitling on there, this is the perfect example of the problems with AI subtitling. Somebody in Russia, look at that, Khrushchev's bombshell. Someone in Russia spent a huge amount of time mocking up a newspaper, and in English, because this is, of course, they're all supposed to be English, and the Russians do very faithful adaptations. They don't rewrite these films to set them in Russia. They are very, very English. And yet the subtitling gives you the collapse of the albatross, not the crash of the albatross. And there's another one that is just so, a couple of them that are so wrong with the subtitling. And it helps to watch this twice, because the second time around you have a better idea of what the subtitling is supposed to say. Yes, and there it is. Nick, expensive. And what they mean to say, I am sure, is precious. Nick, my precious, my special girl, the girl,
diamond.
the diamond of my heart. And instead
I think
you
precious was the one.
Instead you get expensive.
No.
And when this is why AI on the subtitling doesn't, you can use it as a start, but you need someone. There's another one. I conjure you.
Yeah.
You need somebody who speaks English and Russian and knows their idioms to rewrite the subtitles.
Well, they don't even have to know Russian. They have to know the material, because when you
yes,
see
monks.
here,
You get monks instead of mon ami.
Mon ami, and yes, the device is still functioning. He means the little gray cells. So it doesn't take someone who knows Russian. I mean, I don't know Russian, but I could have done a better job with the subtitles to translate the English to English. And actually, I've done that. We've done a couple of episodes of the Spanish mystery.
Yes, it was a rewriting of
10 Little Indians.
And then there
were 9. It was a TV series, a 2-part TV series that we'll get to later.
Yeah, when we get to 10, and then there were none. They did a fabulous job, and I remember you had the. Thanks to the Agatha Christie wiki, you had the script.
Yeah.
And you had to tie the script to the film using all kinds of technical magic, of the likes of which I do not understand.
I added the subtitles to the video. That's all. That's what she's
but
trying
you spent
to say.
It must have taken you a week to do that.
Yeah, but getting the timing right to make sure that the subtitle appears and then disappears at the right time, but also to translate them. And you still need somebody who knows Spanish, because I'm sure there were idioms in the Spanish that I wouldn't have known. I basically just improved the English. I rewrote the script is what I did. But keeping it close to what Agatha meant to say, like that, I would have changed that to little gray cells.
Yes, and I noticed this because we saw this for the second time. We saw it for the first time when I wrote the review for Agatha Christie. She watched International Edition.
Yes, a part of 2 there.
And the subtitles were much easier to understand the second time around. They're large, they're easy to read. They still have this maddening tendency to not be on stage long enough. Whoever subtitled it did not put a new speaker on a separate line. Instead, they would run it together like in a block paragraph. It's not the worst we've ever seen, but I will tell you, if you watch this, watch it a second time, because the subtitling will make a lot more sense, because you'll have an understanding of where the story is going. And so you can say, oh, that's supposed to be Nick talking, not Poirot. Oh, this is what they mean, even though what they mean is not what the subtitles say, like Poirot's device instead of his little grace.
And this is also a reminder, we are talking about the movie, we're going to talk about the story, so there will be spoilers.
Oh boy, yes.
And we watched this last night with our kiddies.
Yes, and I'm afraid that Sasha refused to appear. I don't know why.
Well, I fed them wet food before they started, and I think they were,
they
cats
had
are
their
food motivated.
Yeah, they had their gushy food,
and we had our little snacks here. I had the Troganator beer from Trogs, a local Hershey brewery. Very nice, very good beers. And you had some tea, some herbal slop.
Because I'm getting a cold.
You're getting a cold, and some Royal Danish pastry. So we talk about everything here. I'll spare you the photos of our shed. I spent the last week and a half rebuilding our shed in the backyard, and that's one reason why I didn't do nearly as much work as I hoped.
Let me do an advert. advert.
An advert? Oh.
Yes, because right now...
Sponsored by?
We are the Agatha Christie International and Agatha Christie She Watched. We are actually running the ebooks on sale for $2.99.
That's right.
For this, through the for a couple of weeks. We're going to run it for a couple of weeks. I can't remember the end date, so I'll just say a couple of weeks because I can't
Around
remember.
May 15th, I think. Or no, actually, when we get back from Penwriters,
Penwriters. So
on the 17th.
yes, through May 17th or May 18th, but it is $2.99 instead of $9.99 for the ebook. So if you've been thinking about getting a copy of the ebook, they are on sale this week, which is a nice change.
Yeah.
And they're huge file sizes, and yet you still don't get as much art in the ebook as you do in the trade paperback. But anyway, we need to get back to Russia.
Mm-hmm. This is the earliest adaptation.
No, it is not the earliest adaptation.
Well, that's why I was saying the first.
It's the first one
it
we're
because I'm
watching.
sure there was more before that, but this is from 1989. It is.
Let me find it.
It's the Soviet Union. They were going through glasnost. They were just about to break up, and as a result, this was filmed in Lithuania, one of the Baltic states.
Yes, this was. We go back and forth on the date apparently, whether it's 1989 or 1990.
Mm-hmm.
The first version that we know of for Peril at End House is a Lithuanian version in 1981, and it has surfaced on YouTube with a facsimile of AI subtitles. We'll find out, but we're going to watch that in a couple of weeks after we do the other 4 versions of Peril. And yes, Peril there are 5 versions of this novel. 5 versions have been filmed. So we've got the Russian one. We'll finish with the Lithuanian one from 1981. And so these were, for the Western speaking world, the Russians are the little bit that I've seen of Agatha Christie film adaptations, you can tell me if this is correct with Sherlock Holmes. They like being faithful.
Yeah.
They like being really faithful because it's important for them to be really faithful. And so you get even though everybody is speaking in Russian, they all have the English names. They're dressed in a quasi-English fashion. It's always not quite right, not quite accurate. The landscaping is clearly not English. They're in some Lithuanian monastery, and it looks absolutely superb. And of course, the subtitling is weird. So it's not quite English subtitling. And then at the same time, they're all speaking in Russian.
Yeah. And they're talking about Yorkshire.
And they're talking about Yorkshire. My cousin Maggie from Yorkshire. And okay. But it is this version, and we'll find out with Lithuanian from 1981. We'll find out with that in 5 weeks. This version covers the plot. Mm-hmm. They removed a lot of the subplots. They removed a lot of the red herrings, particularly Freddie Rice's evil, abusive ex-husband. He shows up. He is abusive to her. This is Freddie.
Yep.
She is a drug addict. She is a cocaine addict. She's miserable. She is starting to have an affair with Jim Lazarus. And they mention in the story, in the film, that apparently he has a wife and kids stashed somewhere. That's Jim Lazarus, the antique dealer. And it's and a little bit of his subplot got X'd out too, because what was it that he wanted in End House? Mm-hmm. And you do see a scene where Maggie points to the painting of her grandfather and said, "Oh, Jim Lazarus wanted to give me money for that, but I'm not going to sell the painting of my grandfather." And of course, it turns out that there's another landscape in the house that is worth tens of thousands of dollars, but Nick doesn't know it. And if she sold the landscape for what it's worth, she would be able to pay off some of her debt and pay some of her mortgages. But she's not going to do that. Okay. And he doesn't tell her this because he is, of course, an antique dealer. And like every antique dealer, he wants to buy low and sell high. But anyway, a lot of the minor subplots got removed, but you kind of need them because when you have like Freddie lost some of her lines, and there's a very important line that she says fairly early on to Poirot, and he has already recognized that she is a drug addict. And Freddie says, "Nick lies. Nick tells lies." And Poirot chooses to disbelieve Freddie because he likes Nick. She's this damsel. He's going to rescue the damsel. She's being shot at. She's been threatened. She had a bullet that was shot through her hat, dropped into his wine glass at breakfast. Oh my God. This is shocking. This is terrible. This is awful. And he's making a cardinal mistake. Just because Freddie is a drug addict does not make her wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the great pleasures of the novel is watching Poirot be fooled willingly by a pretty girl.
You know, that was brought out in the Les Petites version
A
in season
lot
one.
in
I was just thinking
spades.
about that.
Wow,
They
boy.
really played on the fact on this is not the Poirot. He's a police lieutenant. He's not Poirot
No,
so
he's a
much.
commissaire.
He was okay, commissaire,
Commissaire Le Rossier.
and he's a horn dog.
Oh my God.
So it's really kind of funny to watch him being played, and it doesn't really show up as much here. But obviously, Poirot is covering for Nick Buckley as well. And as a matter of fact, let's go ahead and get you your Poirot and your Hastings on screen there.
Yes, and here they are again with an English language newspaper. And this again is something that they did really, really well that I don't recall the other three versions that we've seen before making a point of this, which is that everyone at this Cornish resort knows perfectly well who Poirot is, because there's this huge stories in the newspaper. Oh my God, the famous detective is visiting. The criminal element that is here in our town has fled for greener pastures because we can't have, we don't dare commit crimes with Poirot here.
Typical media claptrap. You know, they blow it up out of all proportion, despite the fact that Poirot introduces himself as the world's greatest detective.
Yes, exactly. And so when this is why I'm looking forward to seeing the David Suchet Poirot. So Poirot even gets fangirled
Oh yeah.
in the restaurant. He's at the hotel resort having breakfast or lunch on the terrace,
Yeah.
and you actually get a scene where you have this young person, I think a young man, but
he was a young boy.
a young, like a teenage
14,
boy,
15.
14 or 15, and he leaps up. He's with his mother. Oh my God, it's Hercule
There's
Poirot! Oh my
Poirot!
God, it's Poirot!
And Poirot barks at him. It's super funny. And they all laugh.
And everybody laughs, but it shows how well known he is. And this is important because Nick Buckley, and I'm going to get the names confused. Nick Buckley she is playing a role. She is the damsel. She floats above the trauma around her. Oh yes, my life was threatened, but it doesn't mean anything because it really wasn't real.
Because
And
I think
my
it was
God,
a car tried to run her down.
yes, a car tried to run her
and
down.
Then the painting,
fell over her bed. And Poirot is being scammed by a pretty face because he's not seeing the important detail. And he does say it later. And he does kind of talk about it in the novel at the very end, that Nick being almost run down by a motor van and the painting falling on her bed, nobody sees them.
We only have her word for it.
We only have her word for it. And one of the hallmarks of Poirot, and the Russians did an absolutely fabulous job with this when they redid The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, which we covered a couple of weeks ago, where Poirot explains to Dr. Shepard, you said this, so I don't know if that's true.
Mm-hmm.
But someone else talked about the exact same incident, and their interview corroborates what you said. He doesn't do that here because he is just overwhelmed by this pretty girl, Nick Buckley, who so needs his assistance because, my God, she's being shot at. And so he never sees until after the fact that the real victim is, of course, Nick's cousin. And then that swings us back to Michael Seaton, whom we saw on the front page of the newspaper. He's an important character. He never has a single line of dialogue. He never comes on stage.
He's the Captain Trevelyan of the book.
Yes, he is. He is the Captain Trevelyan of the book. His death motivates everything. And again, this is where I come back to removing one of the subplots. And Freddie Rice is a major subplot, and she is Nick's best friend. But she recognizes that Nick is unreliable and Nick lies, and she tells Poirot this. But one of the things that Freddie Rice is able to do that Nick does not, and because they simplified the plot, you don't get the additional reason for a motive.
Yeah, the
Nick
red
wants the
herrings are
money.
right.
Nick really wants the money. She
Now,
really needs the money.
you have to end house is the house she lives in. She inherited it from her family and she owns it, but she also doesn't have money and she
To
needs it
maintain
to
this
maintain
enormous
this enormous
pile and
house.
mortgage. She mentioned specifically mortgages.
Yeah.
She needs a massive infusion of cash to keep this house.
Yeah. And so it's her, and she has a circle of friends who are staying with her, aren't they?
Oh
They're
yeah, they all
kind of
stay in
living
each
off
other's
her because there's
houses.
Freddie Rice, as
There's
we talked
Freddie
about. There's George
Challenger,
Challenger,
who is the local drug dealer,
but he's
and
also a yachtsman.
most of his part got written down, and it's his being a yachtsman that leads to some comedy in the novel because, of course, Hastings cannot accept that a sportsman like George Challenger could possibly be a drug dealer, but of course he is.
Yeah.
So you get George Challenger, his part got written down. There's Jim Lazarus, who is Freddie's paramour and an antique dealer. The and you get
And you get the Crofts.
and you get the Crofts, Bert and Millie, who are living in the
like the gatehouse,
the gatehouse,
the lodge.
And Millie is crippled, and that is the great Ida Evers, who played in a number of. She was Miss Marple in the Estonian production of Miss Marple. She was Miss Marple in The Mystery of the Blackbirds, which is a film we would really like to see with English subtitles, but alas, we probably never will. And she was even the Grande Dame in the Unexpected Guest, which we found purely by accident.
Right.
And thank you, whoever it was who clued us into that film, because we watched it and reviewed it.
Yeah.
But she they're there, and you lose also the subplot. And again, they're in the novel, there's the creepy housekeeper and her creepier husband and her really creepy son. But the creepy housekeeper again tells Poirot that Miss Buckley lies, and there is a secret compartment, and of course Miss Buckley would know exactly where it was, and then she claims that she doesn't. And so you see Nick Buckley lying to Poirot on the page, and he doesn't see it, and that's part of the pleasure.
Yeah.
But getting back to Freddie, because her plot was reduced, it gets a little bit complicated. So Nick needs money to keep End House running. Nick met Michael Seaton, Daredevil pilot, whose uncle is this massive millionaire, tons and tons of money. But Michael Seaton, and I think you're looking for, yeah, that's it. There's
that's the picture of him.
Yeah, that's Michael Seaton.
That's all we see.
That's the only thing you ever see of him. But Michael Seaton is going to be incredibly rich when his uncle kicks off and leaves him with simply truckloads of money.
Mm-hmm.
And he can't marry anybody because his uncle is prefers birds to women. He thinks women will destroy your life, which isn't true, is it? It's not true at all.
Yes, dear. Of course. Yes, it is. It is true. Yes.
Are you trying to send Morse code signals? But anyway, Michael Seaton meets Nick Buckley,
right,
and falls in love with her, and then he falls out of love with her, and he chooses her cousin Maggie Buckley. And they do a great job with dressing Maggie, because when you see the two of them side by side, Nick is wearing a more seductive dress, low cut, and Maggie looks sweet and virginal and innocent with that high collar. She even has daisies in her hair. And you want to talk about sending signals that say, I'm the virginal ingenue.
Yeah.
It's perfect. But Maggie got what Nick didn't. Maggie found true love, someone who wanted her.
Yeah.
And in the novel, Jim Lazarus, if I'm remembering correctly, Jim Lazarus meets Nick, and they have a little bit of a fling, and then he dumps her and goes off with Freddie Rice. And the reason being for this is because as men get to know Nick better, they start to back away because there's something wrong with her. And when you lose the creepy housekeeper and her family telling you Nick lies, and when you lose Freddie telling Poirot Nick lies, you don't see this as much. And I think it weakens the overall plot, and it weakens the murder the murder at the end, because in the end, Nick murders Maggie because of a thing with the names, whereby she, as her real name is Magdala Buckley, just like her cousin's name is Magdala Buckley. And since she can claim that she was Michael Seaton's fiance, and she has it in writing, well, she could.
She has letters to Nick, dear Nick, and she can pass it off because the names are so similar. And
yeah, and
that
so
also
she
means
wins the
that
money.
Maggie has to be put out of the way, because once this becomes clear to her, she may end up saying,
yeah, exactly.
No,
so
he was engaged to me.
So Maggie has to die. And so
it's... Oh, and also before our aviator left for his around the world trip, he made a will.
Yes, he made a will naming Magdala Buckley.
Mm-hmm.
And the and Agatha plays with names like this, so you'll see something similar and sometimes elsewhere, with initials and so forth, where you have the same initials.
Oh yeah, Dumb Witness and Orient Express being two of them.
But then you have another reason for, Nick murders Maggie because she wants the money. But I think she also murders Maggie because she is jealous and resentful of what Maggie has. And I think that this is why Nick goes out of her way to incriminate Freddie. Oh, Freddie sent me the chocolates. And then Freddie says, well, Nick asked the poison chocolates. And Freddie says, but Nick asked me to.
Yeah.
And so who poisoned the chocolates? Well, Nick poisoned the chocolates because Nick is also a drug user and also carries her little stash of cocaine in a little watch charm. And then at the very end, during the seance, here, Nick hides the handgun, and Inspector Japp, who shows up at the last minute, sees her hiding it in Bert Croft's pocket. Well, in the novel, she puts it in Freddie Rice's coat pocket because she wants to incriminate Freddie, her best friend, because Freddie got what she didn't, which is the love of a man, someone that
she wanted.
Freddie is capable of inspiring love in a man, of keeping it, and Nick isn't. So you have a better motive than just the money. There's also resentment.
It's kind of like a reverse of Death on the Nile with the relationship there. Or also in Endless Night. Agatha likes playing with relationships and attraction. And there are some attractions that are permanent and fine, like Tommy and Tuppence.
Yep, absolutely.
And then there are some that are more ephemeral or used for criminal purposes, like in Death on the Nile and some of the other stories, the hidden couple trope.
And, in a way, there is a hidden couple in here because it is Cousin Maggie and Michael Seaton. They are a hidden couple. They have to remain a hidden couple because his uncle will not give him any money. He is waiting to marry Maggie after his uncle dies because he needs the money for his aviation career. And you can just assume that the day after his uncle dies, even before the funeral, he is going to marry Maggie Buckley.
Mm-hmm.
But they are a hidden couple. Nobody knows that they're a couple. They have to keep it a secret for a perfectly valid reason, which is that rich uncle will disinherit Michael Seaton if he marries Maggie.
Mm-hmm.
And so Nick is taking advantage of that lack of information. She knows, and in fact, this is spelled out again in the novel. You see Poirot with the stack of letters. Well, it turns out that Michael Seaton wrote a lot of letters to Maggie, and Nick stole the letters that did not say Maggie at the top, as in Dear Maggie, or My Precious Maggie, or My Expensive Maggie. She chose the ones that said Darling, or My Dearest, or My Sweetheart. They don't say her name. And Poirot doesn't notice this until the end. So the basic plot is all there. Everything is there. But it's dumbed down just a little bit too much. There are things that they add, like that wonderful scene with the teenager fangirling all over Poirot. And then you have, there's this weird sequence when they're in the hotel room, and for some reason the camera focuses on the fact that Hastings is watching Moonraker, which is a James Bond movie
with Roger Moore that's playing on the TV.
Yeah, we watched that, and we had to spend some time figuring out that, oh my God, that's Moonraker with Roger Moore. And this is time that could have been spent more on the plot. I mean, but they still got most of it in.
Yeah, I think you're right. And yeah, it did kind of drag, I'm afraid. I mean, we
It
had some
it
interesting things.
but it just wasn't snappy. It should
Yeah.
have been snappier.
Well, and we'll see that with the David Suchet version next week, because I remember that now when you're talking about the Challenger and the drugs and all that other stuff. I think it moved much faster because there was more story to go through, more red
In
herrings.
less time, because they only had an hour and a half, and here we have an hour and 42 minutes, and you can do a lot in 12 minutes.
Yeah,
But it
but
was
still,
it
but you
it
have things like the again
the
I'll play
letters.
this, or the musical instruments here, and it's playing because I wanted to have it play.
Is it playing?
It's playing, yes. But that's one of those things, it's just one of those little details here that they're at a hotel. So sometimes you see jugglers in the background, sometimes the characters talking, and there's background dancers, and they're not performing. It seems like they're rehearsing.
They're rehearsing, and I think that they were filming. I think what happened, because we saw this a couple of times during the film, and I think that they were filming at a real hotel, and the business of the hotel was going on around them, and so you get some inadvertent documentary, like that pair of hotel dancers who would put on an exhibition in the evening,
Yeah.
which is something like you would see in The Body in the Library, where you have exhibition dancers who live and work at the hotel.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we saw.
So that's one of the attractions of this. This is a country that's changing. It was the same thing with the Ida Evers Miss Marple half-hour episodes, where they're trying to put on a show, and they have a
Estonian
video camera
TV in 1990,
and they're trying to make a schoolroom look like a mansion, and they're really giving it their all. They had Miss Marple fixing a VCR at one point, smoking a cigarette and fixing a VCR because that
no,
was
a
just
boombox.
a boombox.
A boombox,
Yeah.
and she got out her soldering iron. And there was also one of the scenes also had Miss Marple on the road fixing the taxi cab, because she is obviously whoever wrote those, and we probably will never get around to watching them for the live stream, but they're worth searching out on YouTube just to see that Ida Evers Miss Marple channeling Margaret Rutherford's Miss Marple as a woman who is capable of doing anything.
Absolutely. And they were fun, but at the same time, like I say, I am fascinated by these details of production, how they put this together, and what they were doing here.
And it's, it dragged. This show, this
Admittedly,
film
it dragged.
dragged a little bit. I don't think that our Poirot, he's played by, I'm going to say his name wrong,
Anatoliy
Ravikovich. Ravikovich. I'm sure I said his name wrong.
This is the only time he played this.
Yeah, and he's not quite spiffy enough. There are times when he appears in his shirt sleeve, and you're thinking, no. He's in a dressing gown in one scene, and
they have him do things like here.
He high fives.
Yeah.
He did that a couple
high fives. But that's still less objectionable than watching Sir Kenny wave a handgun around in all of his films. Poirot would never wave a handgun around.
Peter Ustinov be getting a door bumped into him.
Yes, exactly. So this is really minor in the scale of what terrible scripts and terrible producers or terrible directors do to Poirot.
Yep.
Poirot high-fiving is really minor on the scale of how Poirot is abused by Hollywood.
Right.
But anyway, I think this is worth seeing, but because the subtitles are so wonky, you have to watch it twice, because the first time around you're trying to figure out what the heck you just saw.
Right.
And the second time around you can appreciate it more, and yet it will still drag in a way that it shouldn't.
But if you want to see a Peril, we've got a couple of more coming up. We'll
Four
talk
more.
about them. We've got
Four more, folks.
coming up. So how did you rate this? Do you, faithfulness to the text and as a movie overall?
It's pretty faithful to the text, except, of course, like I said, for removing the minor subplots. But the minor subplots make it better. So 4 handguns for fidelity.
That's pretty high then, after we've talked about the lack of red herrings, although what was there was faithful.
Everything that was there was faithful. They didn't rewrite anything.
Mm-hmm.
And my God, you see so many versions where they have completely rewritten the plot, and you think, why did you even pay for this property? And quality of movie was 3, because it just didn't quite gel on
Mhm.
its own, but it's still interesting to watch. And this is why you do the film festival, of course. So you get all 5 versions of Peril, and you see how Poirot is handled all the way through all 5 different versions, how Nick is handled, how Maggie is handled. Maggie has a really thankless role because she doesn't spend a lot of time on screen, and the actress has to say, I am this beautiful virginal ingenue, and I am so sweet and I'm so terrific, that Michael Seaton, well-known aviator, dumps Nick, who is more vivid, more vivacious in every way, that he will dump Nick for Maggie. But of course, as men get to know Nick Buckley better, they start to back away because they can sense crazy town lurking underneath that surface. And it depends,
And
I guess, on what your tolerance for craziness is.
right. And we'll see that play out, I think, next week as well. I've gone through the pictures for next week, and I was reminded of that, just exactly that.
But I think it's overall, it's not a bad film. It's not one of the films that you just cringe when you have to sit through it. I mean, we've got the ABC murders coming up in a couple of months, and we're going to have to watch Tony Randall in the Alphabet Murders, and that is just cringe from start to finish, even though it is beautifully shot.
Mhm.
And he really could have made a
He would have
great
been a great
Poirot.
Poirot.
He would have been a
He
great
would have been
Poirot,
really
but his
good.
script and his director punished him and
Mhm.
punished us. And so this is not a cringe film. It's okay. It works. It
Mhm.
does what it's supposed to do. If you don't know the story, you'll be surprised. They set it up very nicely where, Nick and Maggie. And again, if you know the story, you watch carefully, Nick says things, but there's no proof that what she said was true. It's very plausible what she says, but you never get any proof.
Mhm. All right. So next time, of course, we are going to watch the David Suchet version of Agatha Christie's Poirot. I'm very much looking forward to this.
Yes,
Um,
there was a sequence that I remember where we had to slow down the video and the DVD, I should say, and we went through it frame by frame.
really?
Oh, yeah, because supposedly there was a newspaper on a side table that showed that
Oh,
Nick Buckley
that.
knew who Poirot was.
That was
And
clue
I mean,
placement.
that was
And
clue placement. And I mean, my God, we had to go through that DVD frame by frame to find that find that newspaper on a side table.
right,
And if you're going to do clue placement, you shouldn't make the audience go through frame by frame to find it.
right.
But anyway, that's for next week, and I have lots to say, I'm sure.
All right. So we're going to watch it next Wednesday, and we'll see you next Thursday.
Yep, we'll see you next Thursday on the live stream, and thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Mwah.